sake of honesty, I will say January 2024, not the best month of my life, but January 2024 was one of the best reading months of my life. I read some amazing books and I can't wait to tell you all about them. I am Rose, I am at home. If you can hear it, there is a raging storm outside. I don't know what the light's gonna look like and the sound, so I apologize for that. But I have book club in a few hours, so it's now or never to make this video so that you guys can hear about all of the things that I read. So let's get right to it. It's hard to pick, but I'm gonna say this is definitely one of the top books I've read this month. It is probably going to be one of the top books that I'll read all year, and it is S.A. Cosby's Razorblade Tears. This was so good. This was so good that I'd finish reading and I'd go to put it down and I'd just find myself just walking around with it even though I wasn't reading because I just loved it. It was the prose chef's kiss. I would give so much. I couldn't even name what I would give to be able to write as well as S.A. Cosby writes. The way he just put sentences together, I'm so envious of the talent and the way he makes me care about people that had someone just described them to me I wouldn't care about or really stand. Certainly wouldn't want to be around. That is a feat. So this is the story of two elderly gentlemen. Both had been incarcerated in their past. The first had been out of prison for 15 years, had built a business. He and his wife had a son. They'd already had the son when he went in. And the second one had a son with his now ex-wife, was in and out of prison, had only been out about 3 years at this point. Their two sons fell in love and they both kind of got out of the world that they were kind of brought up in, went to college, met, fell in love in college, and got married. Both of the main character men, homophobic, really thought it was a travesty that they chose the life they chose, and both were on the outs with their sons and angry and not understanding everything, and then their sons got murdered. So all of that is kind of backstory to where the book starts. So it's not just about solving the murder of their sons, but it's about coming to terms with their own failings as parents. It's about coming to terms with all of the things that they now wish that they could change and take back and fix, and all of the years that they did have that they didn't take advantage of. And it's just, it's so well done. It is so well done. And it's gory, it's graphic in parts. There's graphic violence, there's no holds barred here, but it's so incredibly well done and seems so, even though, like I said, there's graphic violence, it all seems so real and so rooted in real human emotion. I know I own his next book. I've already bought it. I cannot wait because this was brilliant. If you are in the mood for really hard hitting, if you are in the mood for characters that you wouldn't like if you didn't get to be in their head and feel their feelings with them, give it a shot. It's so good. It's just so good. I don't know what else to say. Read this book. Another one that I read that is not just a top for January, but also totally I know already one of the best things I'm going to read all year is Chain Gang All Stars. And it is by Kwame, Adjei-Brenyah. Hope I said that correctly, but yes, this again, so good. Graphic violence with a capital G. This is about a dystopian world where, not that far off from our own, all of the prisons in this world are commercial for-profit prisons, and to help them make even more profit, they have turned prisoners into gladiators. They have created this kind of gladiatorial system where you can earn your freedom basically by going into these competitions to the death. And if you can last for 3 years through this system, then you get your freedom at the end. And so it follows multiple of the prisoners who are kind of in this position. There's a lot of footnotes for places where the author has researched things that are actually true today, that are rules and laws and things that we actually have on the books, that actually this kind of takes to that nth degree. And I love when dystopian novels do that. They take what we have and then we say, let's follow this to the extreme conclusion and look what could happen. And that's this. And it's so well done. I don't even know what to say. I just love it so much. It was absolutely brilliant. It is going to stick with me for a very long time. It's violent. So you have to kind of be prepared for some violence. There are fights to the death. And it's not like you poison someone and then they go away and die. Like, they are literally fighting to the death over and over. Those are they happen throughout the whole book. So it's hard hitting. It is graphically violent. It does make you think a lot about our penal system as it is right now, and the purpose and the goals and why have for-profit prisons. But if you're in the mood for that kind of hard-hitting, pick this up. It is so worth your time. It is worth the read. You will love it. Another thing that I absolutely adored, and I knew that I would adore it because it was a reread, is Martha Wells' All Systems Red. I've read this before. It had been a couple of years, and I've fallen behind in the series, so I wanted to start back at the beginning. It is the story of a being that calls themselves Murderbot. They are kind of an android with some flesh parts, but I don't think they were ever, it wasn't a human that was turned into a bot. I think they just took some fleshy bits and added them. And so in ways, like, I think it has like a human face, but it prefers to wear a helmet and things like that. So it is programmed and has programming and downloads and things. Well, Murderbot has learned how to turn off the thing in it that doesn't let it think for itself. It's a government chip that governs its behavior, and it has learned to turn it off for itself. And the prevailing thought amongst non-robot or non-androids is that that would make them into killing machines. Well, what it did for Murderbot is they can now watch a lot of television. And so it downloads, I guess, streaming services, and it binge watches shows, and it does things that it enjoys like that. It calls itself Murderbot, but it's not a Murderbot. It's a TV loving bot. So Murderbot has been placed with a group of scientists, and they're on this other planet. All sorts of hijinks ensue. It's really short, so I'm not going to get really into all the hijinks. They do start from page 1. And so Murderbot is trying to protect its humans, and its humans are having trouble. None of them have ever worked with a sec unit, a security unit before, and so they don't quite know how to treat Murderbot casual, like how to work the relationship. They keep wanting to kind of humanize Murderbot. You know, Murderbot, it just makes him uncomfortable, or it makes it uncomfortable. It's a whole big thing. So it's really good. It's really fun. It's super fast paced. I can't wait to add the next one onto a future reread and find myself caught back up, because these are just great. Another thing I really enjoyed, and it was fun, it didn't stick with me quite as much. I read it earlier, but I did have a really good time, and that is Finlay Donovan is Killing It, which, again, it was so much fun. It was what it promised. So this is the story of a young divorced single mother. She's got 2 tinies, one like in daycare and one in like preschool. Her husband has left her for another woman. Everything is falling apart. Her ex-husband, or they're in the middle of the divorce, he's controlling all of the money and then kind of berating her constantly when she can't make it do what it needs to do. And he just always acts like he's so disappointed. She's so, over the top and all of this stuff, and she's just in a terrible place, and he's threatening to take the children. Well, you can't handle things, quite obviously, so he's trying to get his lawyer to get him and his new girlfriend custody of their kids. And so she is so stressed all the time. She's actually a writer. She writes kind of romantic murder mysteries, kind of soft, cozy with a romance, cozy mysteries with a romance edge, I'll say. And so she's way behind. She has a deadline, she's already been paid the advance, and she's super behind, but her brain just can't function to get her to get the pages done and get them turned in. So she has a meeting at Panera, of all places, with her agent, and a woman in the Panera overhears her. Now she's talking about this book and how much trouble she's having killing this guy off in the book, but she of course never says in the book. And so her agent is like, you just need to do it. It's going to be a big hit. So this other woman hears this and assumes that she's an assassin. And so she slips her a note. She's going to pay her $50,000 to get rid of her problem. $50,000 would totally solve Finley's problems. But Finley's not a killer. So hijinks ensue all over the place. It's a ton of fun. I'm not going to say that I'm going to remember a ton about this at the end of the year when I do my wrap-ups, but I enjoyed it a lot. It was great, great fun, and I'm glad that I read it. It's definitely something that I would recommend. It's not like a live in your heart, super heavy, deep meaning like the last two, but it was a great time. And if you're just looking for a really good time that's laugh out loud funny in places, I strongly recommend this book. So the next book was on my list for something that had been on my shelves for a long time, and it had. This book actually came out in 2016. I think I bought the whole series in like 2018, 2019, possibly. And so I went ahead and read the first one, and it is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. And it was good. I really enjoyed it. It is very much YA fantasy from its time. So it is about this girl and her sister. They are living with an incredibly abusive family. Their dad specifically, incredibly abusive man. The mom has apparently ran off and left them, and he's trying to marry her off to somebody, won't even tell her who the guy is, but she feels like it's her way out. Well, there's this like magical carnival game thing that happens in different places around the world, and she, the girl, all of her life from the time she was young, has been writing to the guy who runs this thing, asking him to please bring it near her because she'd really like to experience it. Well, the year that she's getting married, she actually writes and says, I'm glad you're not coming here because I can't go. I'm getting married. This is probably my last letter to you. And he ends up responding and sends her tickets so that she can go to and be a part of the game and get to play the game. But it's only a few weeks before her wedding, so of course she's not going, until all the hijinks ensue and all of the craziness and all of the things. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I was very glad I read it finally. Here's where I am though. Again, really enjoyed it. The other two are this long or longer, and I'm just not that curious about what happens next. I was kind of fine with where it ended. Yes, it's kind of cliffhangery, and yes, we need to know other things, but like I think what might happen is this and the other two I'm probably going to take to my classroom and add them to my classroom library shelves. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm not huge on YA fantasy, and this is very much YA fantasy, and I know that YA has been nudging closer and closer to NA, new adult. Like I think there's kissing is the most that's involved in here. It's very much teenagers and dealing with terrible parents, but still, it's very young. It's a nice, easy fall into read. It was good. Please don't misunderstand. I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time. I just don't know that, given all of the other things that I have to read, that I'm ever gonna want to pick up the other two. And so I feel like my students might like it better than me. So yes, if YA fantasy, especially fairly low romance, YA fantasy is your go-to and you really love that, I strongly suggest it. Like, it's great. But I'm just not sure that I want to read the rest of it. I think I'm good. The very first thing that I read this year, I like to read really quirky, kooky things to start off a new year, and this absolutely fit that perfectly. The first thing I read, and I so very much enjoyed this, was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. So this is the story kind of an octopus, because we get chapters from the octopus's perspective, and then there is an elderly cleaning lady who works in the aquarium where the octopus is, and we get her story as well. And then there is a young man who just has, I guess, the world's worst instincts. Every time he tries to do something, it seems like everything blows up in his face, and he ends up also working at this aquarium. And so we get the story through the three of them. We see how they connect and all of the things. It's so good. It was really good. It was really fun. It was totally quirky. It did tug the heartstrings a little bit. There are some kind of emotional things. There are just great characters. I really enjoyed it. And if you'd like something a little quirky, a little kooky, a little like the perspective of an octopus, I think there are a couple of books that have come out recently with kind of a similar bent to them. I haven't read the others, just this one, but I really enjoyed this. So I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend, if you haven't picked this one up and you're in the mood for something a little quirky, but also a little slice of life simultaneously, give this one a shot. Okay, that's it. 6 books, which was half of my TBR and better than I had expected. I normally try to do at a minimum 1 a week, so 6 was a little bit ahead of the game, which is wonderful. As for my 2024 reading goal, if you remember, I said that my main thing was to end up with fewer owned unread books at the end of the year than what I started with, and I'm actually doing really well, in part because this isn't a cheat, but I did go through my Goodreads and found where there were some things that were on there twice, and so I was able to remove those. So I'm down to 265 from 270. I'm still counting 270 as my start, so I am a bit ahead. So I've got some room to pick up some new books if I want to. And so if you are interested in seeing what I do pick up this month, that video will be at the end of the month, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it, because I'm going to be really, really picky and only get some of the best books that are coming out. So I know you're going to want to see it. And in the meantime, I hope that you have an absolutely amazing rest of your week and that you get to read some really amazing books. Bye, y'all.